Hi, my name is Sarah. I've been sort of part of this movement for over 10 years, part of the psychiatric survivor movement, and I call myself a drug awareness advocate or a patient safety activist. I'm here not because I am a survivor myself, but because my beloved daughter was not a survivor at all. Psychiatry murdered my daughter, and I believe that strongly. She went to the emergency room because she hadn't been sleeping and she was, very agitated. And unfortunately, that trip to the emergency room sucked her into the mental health maelstrom, and she never got out of it, really. Just because of not sleeping and being a little bit delusional, she was slapped with a psychiatric diagnosis, major depressive disorder with psychotic features, NOS. And within 3 days she was on Zyprexa, Ativan, Celexa, and it was real, and in a locked ward in an academic hospital. The first aspect of this is the diagnosis. I mean, she was diagnosed within 20 minutes on the basis of a questionnaire given by an emergency doctor resident. And I was there, and at that same time I was told that she was going to be medicated for the rest of her life. And I just could not believe my ears, because, she'd never had really mental health problems before this at all, really. So she was a sensitive, highly intelligent and artistic girl, but certainly had never had any mental health treatment before that. And suddenly she's in a locked ward in an academic hospital. And they justify giving Zyprexa and stuff like that because they're saying we're treating the prodromal symptoms. We're afraid she's going to get worse. And so we think this is going to protect her. And of course, we all know, all of us here know, that none of these medications have protective features at all. In fact, she got out after about 8 days. And I'm convinced that really it was the medication that was causing her symptoms during the time that she was in there more than her own underlying state. But anyway, she came out and she did gradually go off the medications herself, because she really could tell. She said, my brain feels like it's on fire. And, she knew that it was making her feel weird. And she was in therapy at the time, and I thought, oh, this is, she started therapy. And I thought, oh, will be good for her, because really what she needs is to have her story heard, to understand what her problems were. She was in her early 20s. She was trying to find herself. She'd been in a .com, and then the .com bust came, and she'd had to change to a different kind of a job. And, it was natural that she was troubled. And, this was... But anyway, I found out that basically the therapy after she died, that, they'd basically spent the whole time, urging her to go back on the drugs, and also ruminating over what diagnosis to give her, whether she's depressed, bipolar, whether she had some psychotic disorder, and she was aware that they were undecided about what was wrong with her, and she found it very troubling. And I was also sort of horrified. I wasn't fully aware or fully educated at this time, but it seemed strange to me that they were spending all this time worrying about what her diagnosis was instead of trying to listen to her story. But anyway, 6 months later, she was basically blackmailed into going back onto Paxil, and they added Risperdal, and then within 2 weeks, she was suffering from akathisia and totally in a very disturbed state. So they decided, we better stop that Paxil. So they stopped the Paxil, added Depakote, and that night she stabbed herself to death. And I'm telling you, this is Stanford graduate, a young woman who had everything to live for, very talented. And I have spent the last 10 years trying to warn people about the dangers of these drugs. I mean, many of you are so lucky to have gotten yourselves off and you're now feeling wonderful, but you know, many people have died. I went to the FDA hearings. I met lots of parents, other parents who had lost children and spouses who lost loved ones. And I'm just saying that we really need to make people aware of how much harm, you know, how much suicidal ideation these drugs can cause. So, you know, there was an article in the New York Times just the other day about how why soldiers are committing suicide at record rates. Well, it's because they are all being handed out medications, antipsychotics, antidepressants, benzos, hypnotics, out on the, you know, they have them in their backpack when they're actually in combat. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So we need to stop this. We need to make the public aware of the dangers. And we need to also draw attention to the fact that these diagnoses are not scientific. They're just pulled out of a hat, and we need to stop it. Thank you.